Hello everyone, my name is Brent with the website cmidtn.com, and before we get too far on this, I want to mention there is an alternate version of this video where we just go back, where we go up and down the windy parts of Suck Creek Highway without me talking. It's an abbreviated version, but I hope you stick it out for this longer version. We're going to take this route from winter of 2021 where they still had some road construction going on. They had the red light which runs for about 2.5 minutes, but now it's turned green and we're going to start to go up the hill. First thing I'll point out is pay attention to the spots along either side of the highway where there are places you can pull over. I wouldn't do it where the road construction is, but here in a few seconds after you get past the road construction, there are places that you can pull over and get out of your car and get a good look at the creek below. Such as this one right here on the right. The creek is on the right, but there's some mountains on the left. There's the other stoplight that we're passing now, and you can see there is a vehicle that is parked on the right now. This video will go up the windy part of Suck Creek Highway, and it'll go past the windy part all the way to the Dixie Highway monument, and then at that spot we'll turn around, we'll come back down the highway again, and then we will ride along Highway 27 where it parallels the Tennessee River for a few minutes until it gets to US 127. There are, with a lot of the better parking spots on the right-hand side, there are a lot of kayakers who come through here when the water levels are high enough, and so there are some rafting and some kayaking places at the bottom of the hill. So, like for instance, right here, there are a couple of places where you can pull over. So that means this is probably a good place that you could start your kayaking journey. The water levels are higher at this point, but a little bit further on, it's not as high as it is right here. I wouldn't be kayaking myself. I would probably just be stepping out of the car, taking some pictures, maybe walk around the creek a little bit, but not too much. Now, historically, one of the better places to park was right here, but you can see that it's blocked off. As it turned out, a lot of people used this site for illegal dumping, and they had to close it off. It's a shame that people had to do that, but some of my relatives told me that they closed that area off probably at least 30 years ago. During this video, we're going to talk about why the creek itself is named Duck Creek. We're going to talk about the a little bit of the history of the Dixie Highway. We're going to talk about the monument, which appears at the very top of this video, and we're going to talk about how the some of the construction aspects of this particular highway, since it is windy and a tough area. We're going to talk about how the Dixie Highway was rerouted in the area, and a couple of other roads that you will see around here. You kind of get a glimpse of the creek there on the right. The further you get up, the less water is going to be going through it, and it gets a little bit less impressive the further you go. If you can see some stairs right there, there is the Cumberland Trail that crosses right here, and you can see a couple of cars parked to get onto the trail at this area, but it might not be the best place to get through that, but that's one of your options. As we get to about this area right here, it doesn't seem like it's as much of a canyon on the right-hand side, and this is one of the last pull-offs on the right. The creek actually splits at a couple points and met about right there, and so from this point on, while there is a little bit of Suck Creek that runs along the side of the road, it's not as impressive, so there's not as many pull-offs for it or really much to do or even look at through here. However, upcoming on the left, there are a couple of wet weather waterfalls that they have some really good pull-offs for that you can take a look at. And once we get there, I actually stop the car, get out, and take a look at it. Here's the first one on the left. And there's a second one about 30 seconds from now. And then I'm going to try and include an actual picture of the Dixie Highway monument at the very top. There's not a lot to do at that monument, but it was placed over 90 years ago. Here is the second waterfall. Look quickly, and that's about all you can see of it. The Dixie Highway monument at the top does have I believe it has a couple of picnic tables, some of the old concrete picnic tables, and trash cans, and the monument. That's about it. The sign on the right says that we are entering the Prentice Cooper State Forest area. And then now the green sign on the right says that we are entering Suck Creek Mountain, the unincorporated community. Now at Prentice Cooper State Forest, there is a lot of things you can do there. There is, of course, the Cumberland Trail, which we saw earlier, walks through there. I think the most famous thing to do there is go to Snooper's Rock, which provides a good view of the area. And there's a sign to the left right there, one of the entrances to the state forest. If you're coming from the other direction, there is a different sign that you will see. There is a wildlife management area for hunting during certain times of year, and also a shooting range, which is open quite a bit. There's even horseback trails and campsites available through that area. Now the area got its name Suck Creek because of where it meets into the Tennessee River. And apparently at the time, as a lot of some early boat traffic would go through the area, the heavy current that was created by the water falling fast off of the side of this mountain would cause a swirling action in the river, and that to an untrained boat captain, I suppose, if you went through there, it was kind of difficult to navigate. It might pull or suck some of the boats into the water right there. I don't know how often that actually hurt people or capsized boats, or how bad the damage was, but that's why it has its name. I know it's a name that a lot of us, the juvenile side of people, like to giggle at, but that's where the name came from. Now the Dixie Highway started in the earliest days of automobile travel, before there were any U.S. highways like we know of today. And it was the idea of some businessmen in Florida that thought, if we could create a nation-long north to south highway, then we could have people from the north come to Florida for vacation. And it's kind of hard to think that there was a time that Florida was not the go-to destination for everyone, but this is one of the things that started to allow people to think, hey, let's go to Miami. So originally it was going to be a route from Chicago to Miami, but then they decided to branch it off into a western half and an eastern half. And we have the monument right there, so we're going to stop and turn around. The western half did continue on to Chicago, and the eastern half went up into Michigan. Now, one of the concerns about this was how to get the highway over Walden's Ridge, and that monument signifies a couple of things. First of all, this is about the highest spot on the entire Dixie Highway, which was built in the 1920s. But it's also about the midway point. So if you think of the halfway point between Chicago and Miami along the western half of the Dixie Highway, is about right there. So that monument signifies both of those things. It was around 1915 when this area of the Dixie Highway was originally planned. At the time, there was no Tennessee Department of Transportation, or as it was earlier called, highways. So it was up to the local counties to actually create a lot of these roads. And so the people in Chattanooga, a lot of the places were flat. It was easy to make, but This area is particularly windy and particularly steep, lots of boulders, not really a conducive place to put a highway, and so it spent a lot of time and money to get such a thing done. Now, originally, a lot of the work was done by Tennessee inmates, where they would come in and do it the old-fashioned way, use dynamite to blow up large boulders. But there's the other entrance to the Prentice Cooper Forest, by the way. But it took more than just clearing out a lot of the rock to build a highway here. And part of the question was the funding. Now, Chattanooga, being a bigger city, had a lot of people eager for people from northern places in the state to come down to Chattanooga as a tourist destination. People who didn't need to go all the way to Florida can just go to Chattanooga and have fun. But the stretch of the highway that we're in right now is in Marion County, which is a much smaller and very rural county. A lot fewer people lived in this area at the time. And there were fewer people to pay the bill, and the people who would be traveling this highway weren't the people that were going to spend any money in Marion County, and so they were not very excited about the thought of paying for an expensive road that the local residents were going to need to pay for. They didn't like that, and so the local newspaper had the Sequatchie Valley News published this: "The public is thoroughly indignant over the entire Suck Creek proposition. It is a disgraceful waste of public money, should have never been started, and ought now to be stopped." And here we are at the first waterfall. We'll get out here and take a look around for a moment at this. This is probably only going to be a waterfall more so in the winter, but certainly after a good rain. I think there was a heavy rain the day before this. This actually goes in a drainage ditch under the highway and then meets up with the rest of the creek. The people of Hamilton County, which is Chattanooga, were willing to pay for this highway. So the Tennessee General Assembly actually passed a law to temporarily transfer part of the county from Marion County through here to Hamilton County. And we'll actually see the Hamilton County line when we get at the bottom of the hill. But here is the second waterfall pull-off. I'm going to try and throw in a couple of pictures to go along with both of these waterfalls, and those pictures I actually took 8 or 9 years ago on a previous visit here. They were not taken today. There's a little bit different amount of greenery here, but again, the water ends up going underneath the road and then meets up the actual creek later on below. Once Hamilton County was willing to pay for the highway, well, then World War I started, and so that detracted from road building because America was busy in a war. And then when the war was over, there was an influenza epidemic. So even though this area was planned in 1915, it was not completed until about 1920. But they got it done, and it's turned into a very scenic, especially this 4-mile drive down the side of the ridge. It's a very scenic and was considered one of the most scenic stretches along the entire Dixie Highway. But it did not remain part of the Dixie Highway forever. Eventually the Dixie Highway was routed to cross over where Mont Eagle is today, and so it became where Interstate 24 now goes down on the Chattanooga side of the area of Walden's Ridge and the Cumberland Plateau. That was originally part of the Dixie Highway, especially on the the westbound lanes was both sides of that old Dixie Highway. And then now there's the first exit when you get to the bottom of the hill is for Tennessee Highway 2 that runs into the city of Jasper. And then the Dixie Highway is from Jasper all the way to Chattanooga, what is now Highway 41. From the town of Jasper, Highway 41 today, which was Dixie Highway then, does parallel Interstate 24 until you cross the Tennessee Rivers. And some of you may remember the old Haletown Bridge that was removed about 10 years ago. But crossing the Tennessee River, then Highway 41 actually parallels the Tennessee River, or you might want to call it the Nickajack Lake area, for quite a while. And so that's a much slower way of getting into Chattanooga than taking Interstate 24, which dips on down into Georgia and then comes back up. But then Highway 41 went into Chattanooga, and so then this area no longer needed to be part of the Dixie Highway. So this area was, or this highway became Tennessee Highway 27. And going the other direction, Highway 27 goes into the town of Whitwell. If you ever visit Whitwell, you should visit the local middle school with the paperclip Holocaust exhibit that is free to visit outside of the school. And going through the valley there is also quite a pretty drive. But Highway 27, don't confuse that with US Highway 27, which also runs through Chattanooga. US 27 goes to the town of Dayton to the north, and incidentally, that is also original part of the Dixie Highway. That was a connector from the western half to the eastern half of the highway. They did make several connector highways go from one side to the other, so two parts of the Dixie Highway met in Chattanooga. And then to the south, Highway US 27 goes on into Georgia but stays west of Atlanta. We're getting now down closer to the bottom of the hill again, and we're going to see what it's like to reach the red light coming from this way. The traffic stays at a red light for about 2 minutes, and so thankfully I stopped recording when I got to about this spot. So you'll see it change green here in just a moment. And now that it's green, we're going to see the part of the tiny little part of the bottom of the highway that we didn't see coming up. I'll be happy when they get that paving area done. Perhaps they'll get that finished before I return to this road again. And once we get that past this spot, we're at ground level. If you see the green sign on the right, that is the Hamilton County line, and you'll see that car is going to the right. That's another interesting scenic road. And let me find the name of it here for just a moment. That is it's called River Canyon Road. There are, not too far away, there are a couple of, I think there's a bed and breakfast, maybe a couple of churches, and some resorts and some fancy vacation houses along the Tennessee River. But that was another old road used to get through the area. If you ever drive through there, be careful, because since that road does not get used a lot, especially in the middle, there are some very treacherous road that they parts of the road that the state acknowledges. There's holes, there's places that have collapsed a little bit, and not enough people drive through there for them to actually fix it, but they've just put up a warning for it. And I believe part of it is even one way through there because they can't fix it to make it a two-way road. So, but it does make for a scenic drive that you should do one time, and I did that road one time. So now we're going through another residential area of Highway 27. There's another little creek that a lot of people can park here. I don't know if there's more kayaking or if these people are just for fishing, but another little stream that comes off the mountain, and people are parking along right there. And then in a few minutes, we'll get past some of these more expensive houses. We'll get into an industrial area where you'll see, I'm not quite sure what is manufactured coming up here pretty soon, but you'll see there's a pipe that actually goes over the highway, and then also some trains that back up to this industrial area. And so I decided to include this area as part of the industrial area from here. Here's another interesting spot right here. There's a parking area on the right, and it includes a historic marker. And it also doubles as a boat ramp onto the river. And then this highway ends up going all the way to US Highway 127. At the end of this video, if you were to stop and take a left along US 127, that would take you up the old Signal Mountain Road, where you can see the Flying Saucer House, and Pulpit Rock at James Point takes you up to the city of James Mountain. I have another video without commentary, it's just a driving video going from the top down that US 127. The other popular road to get up Walden Ridge through here is the Old W Road. It has that name because at one point there are 3 switchbacks, and so the old highway makes the shape of the letter W. And so I will link both of those videos here at the end. I said earlier, my name is Brent. I run the website cmidtn.com. Please check me out. I do focus a lot with my photography in the Middle Tennessee area, but I love venturing to all parts of the state, especially here in East Tennessee and the Chattanooga area. There is just so much to see around here. And Chattanooga has always been a fun place to visit, with scenic roads especially. Not only through here, but of course up and down Lookout Mountain. Across the second pipe going over the road right there. On my website, I do have several photo galleries. I have a daily blog where I talk about some interesting things, mostly from Middle Tennessee, but again, along all parts of the state, even some nearby states. So I visit Alabama and Kentucky quite often as well. I would appreciate it if you check it out. If you like this video, press the like button. I'd love it for you to subscribe, and I'll keep making content just like this. And let me know if there are other scenic highways in the Chattanooga area or anywhere else in Tennessee that you'd like to leave as we approach US 127. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.